not helping.
Speaking engagements.
Welcome to
I
the Parenting Connection Show. This morning, I'm with Elaina Thomas, who is a native Texan who currently serves as the role of shelter director. She began her tenure with Bay Area Turning Point as a shelter manager in 2018. Elaina is a graduate of Lamarck High School and attends McNeese State University, where her passion is working with underserved populations. After speaking to some track teammates about a part-time job, she went on to work for Harbor House Emergency Treatment Center in Lake Charles, Louisiana for 9 years. Elaina has served in various leadership roles since entering social services. Her experience ranges from managing emergency shelters to adolescent substance abuse in treatment centers, while her absolute passion is to assist survivors and those connected to them to heal and thrive after domestic and sexual violence. Her greatest passion is being a boy mom to her 3 sons. She can be found in her free time in the stands cheering at various sporting events from state to state. Making the world a better place for them is her driving force, and making the world a better place for everyone. Elaina considers it a privilege and an honor to work alongside others in the fight to end domestic violence and sexual assault violence. If you don't know, this month is Domestic Violence Month, along with drug prevention and also bully prevention. But Elaine, I want to welcome you to the Parenting Connection Show. Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hodge, for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, so tell me something. How did October become Domestic Violence Awareness Month?
Right, so Domestic Violence Awareness Month actually began as a single day of unity. So that started in 1981 by the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So it was created to connect individuals in the work, in the fight, in the movement, to stand together to end domestic violence against women. So that day of unity, then it became a week. So it became a week in 1987. October was recognized nationally as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And then in 1989, federal law designated October as the official Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And each year we fight to keep it going.
Can you tell us what domestic violence is and what services you provide to those that are caught up in domestic violence?
Sure. So you'll hear several terms when referring to domestic violence. So these terms are often used interchangeably. You may hear domestic violence, intimate partner violence, family violence, and dating violence. So to give a little bit more insight into those terms, so domestic violence is defined as a systematic pattern of abusive behavior, and it's used to gain or maintain control over a partner or a member of the household. Family violence, so it doesn't have to be an intimate partner. It can be acted against a member of the family or the household. And so what's different about that, or critical in that piece, is of course when you're defending yourself, you're fighting for your life, that is not going to be considered family violence. That is excluded because you're doing what you have to do to protect yourself. You're not that initiator in that violence. Intimate partner violence refers to abuse by a partner or spouse. So that's going to be on the intimate romantic level.
So we know that domestic violence is an issue, but how big of an issue is it?
It is a big issue. So 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men are experiencing domestic violence nationally. In Texas specifically, about 40% of women and 35% of men experience that intimate partner violence, and it can include physical violence, sexual violence, and or stalking. Just some of the numbers for Texas in 2022. So there were 216 people killed by intimate partners in over 64 counties.
Wow, wow. So why don't people just leave? You know, if somebody hits them, somebody's being ugly to them, why do they just leave?
Well, that's a good question. That's a
Why
good
don't
question.
they? Why don't they just leave?
Why don't they leave? Yeah, that's a good question. So of that 216, of the 216 people that were killed, 51% of that number had either already left the relationship or were already trying to leave. So in looking at that statistic, for the homicides in Texas alone that occurred after that separation, or attempting to separate, it can be dangerous to leave. Domestic violence is about power and control. So when a victim tries to leave or they've left, that can often be the most dangerous time, and it can cause that offender, to become increasingly violent because they're losing that control. If it's all about power and control, they're losing that control. So that's just one of the reasons why, because it can be the most dangerous time to leave.
I went through a whole lot of stuff with my ex-husband. Um, I want to say that, I think I put him out or left about took like 15 times. What is the average does it take, for somebody to say, finally, I've had enough?
So the average is 1 to 7 times. It can take up to 7 times for someone to decide to leave. There's many reasons that keep them behind. And from the outside looking in, you can kind of think of, why don't they just leave? Or if they leave, why do they go back? You could be stuck kind of in that bias or judgment of, why don't they just leave, or why do they keep going back? Because it's difficult.
It is difficult, especially when you're talking about patterns and cycles. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. Can you explain a little bit about what the cycle of violence and what it looks like?
Okay, so the cycle of violence, of again, it's about that power and control, that power and control of the abuser wanting to keep and maintain that control. And there can be several reasons why, or several reasons behind that power and control. It could be economic power and control. It could be the children, with the economics. It could be preventing, their spouse or partner from being able to go out into the workforce to make money, or it could be controlling the money. The victim may be the breadwinner of the family, but if the abuser is going to control all of it, then that kind of keeps that victim in place, because if they don't have the finances or resources, sometimes that may cause them to stay, because I can't leave without anything. What am I going to do? Me and my children, if I don't have the financial means to support them, and things of that nature. It can it can hold a person kind of hostage.
Wow. So, to talk a little bit about safety plan.
Safety planning. Okay, so safety planning, it is key. Safety planning is key when working with someone who is experiencing that domestic violence. I think the main thing to keep in mind is to let the person that's going through that situation to create their safety plan themselves. And we just assist and partner with them to create that, because they know their situation best. They know when it's going to be the best time to leave. They know when it's going to be, optimal for their safety. So sometimes safety planning can even be when they're still in the home. It can be those steps that are leading up to and preparing to leave. So, a lot of people aren't able to just get up and go. So that safety planning, is key. And then coming up with, even when you are, sitting with your friend or your family member, coming up maybe with a code word or a phrase, that they can call, and just say that one word. So, so being supportive, of that person, um, because like my shirt says, believe survivors. You have to start with believing that what they're saying is actually the truth. So you start with believing them, listening with empathy. Again, like I said earlier, sometimes we may come in with our own biases of, if it's our friend, girl, why didn't you leave? Why are you still there? You keep calling me, telling me all this stuff, but yet you're still there. So sometimes when they
Yeah.
bring us stuff, we may not be, as empathetic or supportive as we feel we're being. And sometimes that can also cause them to not even reach back out to you. Um, so, so you may be actually creating a barrier when you're trying to help, and because you have that relationship with that person. And then above all, kind of know some resources, have some resources on hand. Above all, 211. That's the United Way helpline. Giving them that number connects them to a world of resources, and then becoming educated on the issues. So becoming educated on the issues surrounding domestic violence, surrounding why people stay, those type of things can kind of help you be a little bit more empathetic, but also a resource, when they do have that courage and strength to reach out.
You know, a lot of times if somebody is born into a situation and that's their norm, that it looks normal, and so that's like you have to change a whole mindset.
Right.
And
Right.
so, when we get stuck in patterns of thoughts, or, I call it stinking thinking, it can become a way of life. And it takes a lot. It takes a whole different type of mind training and mind transforming to know that, hey, you don't have to deal with this, and this is not normal. What steps can a person take if you suspect, someone is in an abusive situation?
So again, that safety planning piece is very critical, and knowing those red flags to look for. Um, so just being knowing those red flags to look for, those when they are triggered, or when they are having those mood swings and things like that. So if you're seeing some of those things, y'all could be out as a group and you're kind of seeing that type of thing. Those could be some red flags for you to get with your friend or your sister or even your brother, to say, hey, I kind of noticed these things. That's not okay. They're trying to control you. Why do they need your password to your phone? Why don't you have any privacy? Those type of things. So those are some things to look for. And then of course the most obvious is going to be that physical violence, those marks, those things that are visible. But another thing to keep in mind is, strangulation or suffocation. Those are, things that may not have any physical marks, but if they say, he, choked me, or they may not know strangulation. They may say choked me out or hemmed me up, knowing those words as well, because sometimes those don't have those physical things, but it's the top risk factor for domestic violence homicides. It may start there and escalate.
I work a lot with children. So, what are some of those signs that you see that come into shelter, signs that children may display?
Mhm. Some of the signs, so it could vary with the children that we see in our childcare facility. Some they can seem like nothing's wrong. They may come in with no signs. They may be, but that is a sign. There is no sense of stranger danger. There's no sense of those things. I'm just readily open and willing to go to anyone, do anything with anyone. Those type of things. Some other signs may be, of course, the obvious. The maybe withdrawing, isolating, because maybe they aren't allowed to build those relationships, or maybe they don't know how. or maybe they are untrusting. I don't know if you're a safe person. I don't know you. You may feel like I'm in a safe place. This is the best place on earth, but you're a stranger to me, and I still have to get to know you. You may have all the best intentions of the world, can help me, can counsel me, can play with me, but you're a stranger. So I don't know you. And there's some other things, of course, the hitting, the cursing, the yelling out, those type of things are also some things that we see.
So in your time, what have you learned about working with? Like I said, I work in education. That's what I do full time, and so when I'm called in, it's usually not because a student's behaving like an angel. So so I'm called into these situations where kids are running, where they're, and this is years, even since, I've moved up in education quite a bit, since I first began. But even now, if I'm called into a situation with a general education kid that may be trying to escape the classroom or overturning desk, and just I usually call it acting a fool, and this type of thing is going on, I I don't always jump to that there may be domestic violence in the home, which maybe I probably should have in almost my 20 years of service. But what do you think? Does any of that play a hand in that type of behavior?
I think it could. If I don't know how to express, then I'm going to express it the best way I know how. Maybe express what I see, what I've seen in my home environment. The way to express behavior is to yell and hit and throw things. So that could be a sign that it's not just a behavior issue, but something underneath. So our child care team is trained to kind of look for those signs, what to be aware of, to kind of not investigate, but ask those questions on depending on the age level, of the child and the way they can understand, and to not treat all behavior as behavior, but knowing that the behavior that you see, the expression that you see is kind of just like the tip of the iceberg, and underneath that water, you just see the little tip, the behaviors, the acting out, the yelling, the screaming, the I don't want to share, the running away type of things. But there could be a whole massive thing underneath going on that if you don't take the time to kind of peel away those onion layers and try to build that rapport so they can open up to you, it could be, instrumental in them not getting the help they need if you're just going based off, the behaviors that you see displayed.
Wow. And so I deal with a lot of young women, and sometimes boys too. That So the other part of that domestic violence is the sexual assault. Does that all fall into the same month?
No. So Sexual Assault Awareness Month is actually observed in April, which so that's a nationally recognized month for sexual assault awareness. So at our agency, we try to do events throughout the year that kind of lead up to those months, just to kind of not. Those are the big months that we celebrate. That it is very intentional and very out there, but also it's important even leading up to those months that we kind of bring in the awareness and the outside of those, big months. But no, it is celebrated in two different months, but at our agency, we try to bring awareness throughout the whole year. That's what we're here
Okay,
for.
great. Well, okay, well, let's stay with the domestic violence. There's definitely enough to talk about there. And so, for those of you that don't know, I am a product of Bay Area Turning Point. And so, in one of my books, when I describe my time there, I actually call the chapter the turning point. And so it was a time when God really was working on me, a lot of my character flaws, and working on a lot of the issues that I had inside of me. that I had dealt with, in relationships, in family. So there was a lot of healing that went on, but there was a lot of realization that went on as well. Talk about a little bit about what Bay Area Turning Point does, because they do a lot.
Right, right. So we do a lot. We try to reach every aspect of those who are, in those domestic violence situations. We try to have resources to reach all of it. And of course, we have the initial hotline, which we um, say is the gateway into all the services at Bay Area Turning Point. So we do have a hotline number that the clients call or the survivors victims call to get access to services. So that number, I'll say it now and I'll say it at the end, is 281-286-2525. This is a line that is manned 24/7. Someone will answer, whether it's 12 noon or 12 midnight. And so that's kind of the entryway. That's the starting point. So some of the other services we offer, like you mentioned, we do have the emergency shelter. So our emergency shelter is, a 72-bed facility. So we can house up to 72 individuals, as well as we have a safe harbor program, which is our hotel program, which we dedicate for the overflow. Because of course, when you are ready to flee, when you need that immediate resource, nationally, there's a shortage of beds, which is why we advocate, which is why we legislate to try to get more funding, more beds, things like that. So when the victim survivors are ready to flee and they need that place, we have the bed space to house them and their family safely. So we do offer that service, which is that immediate need to flee, need to get out service. And we also have advocacy and accompaniments. Of course, when you've been courageous enough to decide to leave, but you need someone that's going to be able to walk with you through that process. Especially if you've already been in a situation where you're isolated, you're not connected to your family, you're not connected to the resources. Having that person to walk side by side with you is pivotal in whether you will stay out of that relationship and not go back and have to go up to the 7 times to leave. So having that support system. So we offer that. We do offer advocacy and accompaniments. When it's time to go to court, I'm courageous enough, I'm going to court. We have an advocate that can go with them, that can sit alongside them. It can be scary going to court, even if it's not for domestic violence. Just being in that environment is scary. So we do partner with them in what we call accompaniments when it's, time to do those things. We also have a housing program where we can connect the victim and survivors to resources for that stabilization. In our shelter, there is a defined stay, but the housing program, it can connect them to other resources to where they can get that more stable housing option for them or them and their family. Some other
Oh, it's okay. I was going to say probably one of the best classes I took at Bay Area Turning Point was the assertiveness class. And so I remember being offered that and going, and there was a couple other women that went with me, but learning to set your boundaries and to say no. And sometimes I have to revisit all that in my head, even now. And so, yeah, so many. And so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just
Oh no, we do that. So that's leading to like our counseling sessions. So we do offer that for our non-residential, which is those who are in their own homes, and for those shelter clients who need that person to talk to, that person to vent to, that person to cry with, and that person, like you say, to help them turn the page, to help them to that new chapter, teaching those skills. Life skills class is one of those classes that the clients are able to go to teaching them those skills on how to be independent. And what's amazing to see is when they come in, they don't think that they have what they take to do it, not knowing that you were the breadwinner. You were the breadwinner in a relationship. You are able to maintain an income. You are able to do those things. But just based on the things that the abuser may have been telling them, they don't realize that they do have what it takes. And so that's, some of those classes show them that you are powerful. You do have the tools that it takes, to leave that situation, and stay gone. And that kind of goes again, as well into our crisis intervention and our safety planning that we spoke about earlier, helping them safety plan because, unfortunately, they do go back for various reasons. So that safety planning, we've had clients let us know point blank, I am going to go back. And so they sit with us and we safety plan with them. We don't judge, we don't criticize. We do try to talk to them to see, you have other options and things like that. But at the end of the day, if that's what they choose, we're going to be supportive and we're going to help them try to go back safely. These are some things to do to try to keep you and your family safe. And then with some things like we're doing today, the outreach, education, and prevention, just spreading that awareness, letting people know it is out there, it is happening. So that's pivotal, as well as bringing awareness to it and getting support, more support, for those survivors so they can stay out of, going back.
Wow. And so, I'm hearing that Bay Area Turning Point offers hope.
We do. We do. We offer hope. We offer that, like you said, the turning point. We're there to walk with you as you make that turning point. We're there to support you. And the good thing is even when you enter our shelter and you go on to your next, you can still partner with us in what we call our non-residential program. So just because you leave that shelter doesn't mean you have to break the connection that we have with you. You are still able to receive those services to help you maintain your self-sufficiency.
I am so honored, every year when I get a call from Bay Area Turning Point, whether it's to come share my story or to come, to use, some of the tools that the Lord has given me to be able to bless the Bay Area Turning Point. And so, this is an honor for me to be able to do this, but it's also me still saying thank you 20 some years later. And so, thank you so much, Ms. Thomas, Elaina Thomas from Bay Area Turning Point. We are out of time, and all the information you need about Bay Area Turning Point will be in the comments or description. But if you're watching us on TV, we should have the number to Bay Area Turning Point on the screen. And so if you need help or if you need information, if you need education, please reach out. And thank you. Thank you so much for watching the show, and have a blessed week.